Hey guys, and welcome back to another Super Metal Brothers review. I am Super Metal Brother Matt.
And I'm Super Metal Brother Dane.
We are here to talk about the band Mechina with the album Telesterion. Let's go with that. Sounds like I have a H. Yeah, exactly. It does sound like a Decepticon, doesn't it? This album here is written pretty much, we believe, by one guy, Joe Tiberi. He does all the guitars and programming off this album, and I think that was previous work he's done the same as well. Yeah. Really feels like a one-man band. However, he has enlisted the help of David Holt on vocals and Mel Rose as well. So we do have some vocals going on here as well, which is exciting. This here, for those who don't know anything about the band, is industrial metal, I guess, with a side of gent.
Yeah, and symphonic
and heavy dose of sci-fi, I like to
say. Yeah, I think so. I think the underlying theme is space and sci-fi orientated.
Yeah, it does feel that way as well. Going into it straight away, you are pretty much overwhelmed by pretty good production in the sense that everything seems super polished. Those guitars are super choppy and genty, which is good. The drums are programmed, so nothing's played incorrectly. To a fault, maybe. A lot of people would want to, but I guess in this setting, having things seem perfect as well would make a bit of sense for that sci-fi feeling. It's very mechanical and robotic. Yeah. Lose that human aspect though, but I guess you gain a bit of just overwhelmingness of double kicks, I guess, and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I think they've stripped back the double kick from last album. Last album, the double kick seemed unnatural. I mean, that's a little bit too far. Strip back, and now the drumming on this is okay, a bit more realistic.
Is some stuff like blast beats now. I think in the track, the Caledonian Lance, you do hear some full metal drumming in there that you would hear in the Strapping Young Lad album, which sometimes this album does resemble at times. With that very electronic nature and the tons of reverb on the vocals and some audacious tracks going in for long over 7-8 minutes long as well. Speaking of that Telesterion track, which is incredibly,
10 minutes.
Incredibly long, it's about 9 minutes long. But I want to get back into it. Let's go talk about this album, Danny. Things I did like about it was one thing in the production, and I feel like there is an overwhelming sense of positivity in this album, I guess. There is generally a happy vibe to it, I feel, and mostly it does come from the strings, the violins, that kind of stuff, the synths, and also the female vocals do sound quite uplifting and not operatic, but also just a little bit of that, this is going to be okay kind of vibe, listening to it, it's never really jarring, it's never really like sinister in tone. It's all quite pleasant, I would say.
Yeah, a bit angelic.
The only time this is kind of thrown off is some of those grooves on the guitar lines. But generally, even those grooves are there just to give it a bit of balance and give it a bit of that mechanical drive. But the force of this band really is in the melodies, I believe. And I think that's ideally what this guy's going for, I'd imagine, I think, is that melodic presence. What are the things that you liked about this album before we get into the things we don't?
Yeah, so one thing they do well, and they do a lot of it, is orchestration.
Yes.
So they use that elements, and they use a lot of different types of instruments as well. That they use like wind flutes, and they use strings, and they do like nice string slides to give all that atmosphere and creating a bit of tension if need be, or a bit of like relief when needed as well, which is all done well.
Even with the Caledonian Lance, I think that's what I want to call it, the Lance song. It has this Eastern sounding intro as well, which does feature in other songs as well. And the instrumentation here should be, for me, is the biggest strength of this record here, because there's such an amount of. This really does feel like a album for a movie. It really does sound like a landscape. It needed, and this was the biggest strength and the weakness of the previous album as well, is that it feels it needs a visual medium for the message and the story to get across. And the biggest reason why is it was set up with the most self-indulgent intro I've ever heard in heavy metal history. It was a 6-minute intro, Danny, and nothing is accomplished apart from trying to set the scene. But if you're going to go Blade Runner on us, you really need to see the world. But we hear the world, but it's like watching Blade Runner with your eyes closed. And I'm like, I don't get it. There's nothing, apart from the last 30 seconds, which has a bit of tension and a drive that builds to, I don't get it. There's no conversation, but that's the problem with it. I feel like if there was a visual medium for this, that track, it would really help to get into the album. Some of these orchestrations are so well done that it feels like you're watching a Marvel movie, It really does feel like you're watching Guardians of the Galaxy, where you're seeing the ship enter this whole new city and you're overwhelmed with all the lights and the buildings and the characters and the wonder of it. But then sometimes the metal happens and it's like, well, now it's obviously about what the words in it are about, and you get kind of doing it. I don't want to get into the bad things just yet, but Danny, is there anything else you wanted to say before we?
Yeah, nothing to do well with the sound. They use a lot of folky and tribal sounds throughout.
At times, yeah, absolutely.
Which is clever because folky and tribal, they're kind of the same thing. They're about the community spirit and about heritage and legacy. So having tribal, which is a different community and legacy in a different part of the world, and folk, which again, different tribe, community, different part of the world, using both those elements to help tell the story, I guess, set the tone about like a journey and all that. That's clever. You don't really hear those two being mixed together, so the fact they did it was quite a clever
Okay, let's move on to some of the meat of the album now. And the one thing I want to talk about is the vocals. Now, they've listened to help with 2 vocalists, and I think the male generally playing the backup here with the growls and stuff like that, generally, I think. And the woman here is doing an incredible job being quite angelic and quite the betrayal, and it's very, very pleasant to listen to. And none of this is more apparent for me than the track, the Archiveus Chaos Ritual. I think here is a standout moment, not only for the singing, but for the whole band, as every member, well, every instrumentation used on this is used in conjunction to make the song better and to put across the melody. Even the guitars aren't so genty and staccato rhythms, like and they're more around helping flush it out. Even the song structure itself is a little bit more forward tracked, or railroaded, you could say, into more of a pop metal style. But I liked it. It told a story where some of the songs are victims of their own maybe grandeur. Yeah, exactly. They're more about going through this whatever unconventional, albeit structure. And that's what I'm thinking about the vocals. Generally, it's pleasant, but again, the problem I had with the previous album is that if you're going to go sci-fi with it, I think you could have done a little bit more. There were times where the splitter effect was used. I think particularly there was one track, I can't remember which one it was, but there was like a splitter effect. I think it was like track 4 or 5. But it felt like the girl was just doing quite lovely soft vocals all the time. The guy was doing those growls, but it just was that continuous reverb, and it was, I wouldn't say it was very pleasant for me to listen to because it was just there all the time. Danny, what did you think of the vocals? Did you like them? Did you hate them?
Oh, I mean, yeah, the growl's fine and the singing is nice, but again, it is. I think this might be a repetitive complaint we have, is that the singing is nice and angelic, but that's all it was. It wasn't really, there's enough like dynamics with the female singing and the male singing. It's like that's all you got. Very like nursery rhyme lullaby type singing. Yeah, they did try to break it up. They used a choir near the end of one of the songs, and a lot of vocalizing, like a lot of the like all that stuff to help create a bit of tone. But the singing, and I think more so with orchestration, it started becoming very blending. And very
it wouldn't be maybe much of a problem with the singing, but there is a certain formula that there's used in every song, and that is the string section is over every track, where as soon as the track starts, there's this notes that's sung by a higher register. I think it's the synth that's like an and all it does is kill any of the mood of any of the other instruments are doing, because everything sounds quite angelic and peaceful. There is that chaotic kind of nature with the drums and that, but it's completely in the background. And for me, even though I hear there's a lot of different things going on with that, the feeling is it's a one trick, because this orchestration that is over the top of every metal section is predominant, and it is completely overruling everything else, to the point that not only does it feel like everything's diatonic within the one key and it's all pretty safe, it's just that it feels the same. And that's the problem. Even though I hear there's different ideas, different chord structures, different key movements, different time signatures, it feels the same way the whole way through it. And that was the biggest criticism I had with the previous album and this album, is that the most amount of challenge I hear is when it becomes an orchestrated section, when there is none of that all the way through it, and there's a time where you hear violins and mandolins and those and Eastern instrumentation in that, and it's absolutely beautifully orchestrated. But then when the metal section comes in, it's staccato guitars, some sort of metal drum beat, and this wash of choir. And it became redundant to me, man. I got bored, because it's like there were 2 tracks where I would recommend, for one instance, if you want melody, listen to the Activia's Chaos Ritual, and if you want metal, Tyrannus. They are the best tracks off this album, because they achieve what those other tracks were trying to do the best. apart from that, I can't really recommend it because it's just too much. It's like the feel is the same, and it's asking you to do this for almost an hour, and also it has a problem with the and that's just. And I hate saying it because I know how much hard work was put into this. Everything sounds like it took years off this guy's poor life and that. But the one crime is that it's too familiar with that. When the metal comes in and that thing's coming at the top, it just completely takes any other emotion apart from being, I feel like I'm in a spaceship traveling through, and that's it. I never felt like this thing was getting into any trouble. I didn't feel like there's a meteor shower or that they were having a bad time on the ship. Oxygen. It felt like you're in a ship that was a nice ride with turbulence. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. Later, HAL 2000 trying to like cut off the oxygen, kill them all.
However, I will. I think when I was fully immersed in it and just trying to really enjoy it, I think I can see why people would love this band, because if you can get inside, if you go into a restaurant, no matter what restaurant in the world you go to, and you order the same meal because that's what you really want, this band is for you because it's got exactly what you want, exactly what you remember from this band, but better. And I think this album is better than the previous albums because I think the metal is more engaging. The grooves, especially, like in the track I was talking about before, Tyrannos, was really awesome. And when they did that melodic track where everything was working towards the song, even with a simpler song structure, it was their strongest song. It worked really, really well, and things worked really well. And that's the one thing I found with it. When they went for the idea of incredibly peaceful, was really good, but I guess I like the grooves and that, and the metal side of the other track as well. Aside from that, it's really hard to recommend this for anyone else that's trying to get into it, though. Any other track, to be honest. I've talked enough. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, that's all true. I think they didn't let the songs breathe enough. Because you said they always seem to have that consistent reverbing underneath it all. It's kind of like it always had that undertone with you. Like when you can't get like the buzzing out of like a speaker, it has that feel to it, which I know they try to always keep the atmosphere going, but it needed breathing.
Songs don't climax. They start at as intense as how they finish, basically. Yeah. With it all, generally there is a section in the middle that drops down, so it drops up. But
with
then
that turbulence,
it's like that. It's like duh, duh, duh. And for storytelling purposes, I like a song to kind of hit you harder towards the end because you really want to be like, holy shit, and you want to hit replay because you want to go through those emotions, those wave of rush. Here, I think it's more about an experience overall. So you immerse yourself in this album, you turn off all the lights, and you just kind of sit in it. And I think it does a great job of kind of transporting you into that world of being in the spaceship and enjoying it. But it was all too, there wasn't enough like sinister moments or darker times or even just unsettling and nerving or really tense metal moments that really made me feel a little bit more about it. But the gent sounds in at the moment, and this is a fresher take on it, I guess. That's just more than just 3-string or 2-string or 1-string grooves, it just does a little bit more with it, and the orchestration again is very strong.
Like I said, there's only 1 or 2 moments like where they'll do some bit heavier, rough or a bit gritty, but that's for a 55-minute album, whatever. It's not really enough to say that.
Unfortunately for me, when it came to the 40th minute mark, I was kind of done with this album. I was kind of hoping it to be over, but lucky that Arctivius Chaos Ritual came in and saved it a little bit for me, and it is a track that was pretty strong. I do recommend this one to get into the band if you're more on the commercial music side of it and you want to kind of come in. But if you want a metal vibe, Tyrannos is fantastic.
Good song.
But there are some problems with this album. The intro, the Etmasia, is just whole new level of introductions. We always have a laugh about how every metal album has to start with something.
Some intro.
From the most extreme metal bands like, not so much Nile, but I was thinking about that Sin album with Veld, to other ones as well, to Lacuna Coil, I think they did it as well, maybe. They all have their thing, Betray the Martyrs as well. But this one here is a little too much, and it's lucky they combine it to their own track, so you can always skip it, but I just have no reason why people want to listen to this track in particular. It's too long. It should have been 30 seconds a minute. Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Just the last 2 seconds and a little bit of the build up, so you can say, okay. And the only time they did breathe was in track 8, the last one, Homeworld Salient, where they did the orchestration stuff, and they had literally a pause in the music, and they went on to the next instrumental section, and that was very jarring. And I think they didn't know how to transition from the orchestration to a sporadic staccato section, and I was like, and that's probably why they didn't do as much, maybe because they.
But I think overall, listening to this, it really feels as in metal album. There's metal influences of it, but I really would regard this as more of a. I wouldn't say, it's hard to even say progressive. It just feels like it's in between that rock symphonic element, because the symphonic on it is very heavy. Now, I really believe that this is a niche market, and I think for the right person in the right mood, absolutely, I could see why someone would love it. Because one thing, there is a dedication to the song itself.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hard work, and there's been a lot of energy and effort, and there is a certain technicality. There's a guitar solo strapped to one of the songs as well. That was quite exciting, with some incredibly clean sweep picking as well. I'm not sure if that was the Arctivist or the Telesterion. I can't remember, but there was some really, really beautiful moments. There was some incredibly well executed orchestrated pieces, and like I said, some of those bridges were phenomenal. The way they'd use violins, strings in general, synth work, some of the melodies were absolutely fantastic. The growls worked really well because they weren't too overbearing. They were quite appropriate for it. It really feels like it's not an album about the destination, it is about the journey. And I think if you really like the idea of being strapped into a chair and being in a sci-fi world where it's quite a pleasant experience with, like I said, the gears and the rotors of the engine going on in the background, I think this album can be for you.
That's probably a way of looking at it.
You know, I think it has a certain tranquility to this album, even though there is a lot of chaos to it. It's all confined, and like I said, the synth work is over the top of everything, so I think that's really there, and even the singing is right on the top, so it's quite lovely and peaceful generally. Even when the screaming's there, it never felt like it felt full metal, like it was like, oh, this is full out anger and hatred. It was just there to balance it a little bit, to give it a little bit more into a, in a space of heaviness, but it's hard to say sometimes this wasn't even a metal album, but there is a heaviness to it.
Yeah.
I guess because the drumming and the guitars were basically, you know, the double kicks are there, the drop blast beats and stuff, but damn, I've got a love-hate relationship with this album, I have to say.
I mean, you appreciate the effort and the ability to write something with that much orchestration and that technical side of it, but at the same time, you're also hoping for it to be a bit more dynamic, a bit more engaging, because they get a bit too much in that orchestration and it bleeds too much together. And so it's good. Like, it's kind of become down to taste. If you like that, if you like the previous albums, you probably won't be disappointed. If you like other things like progressive rock and stuff, you probably get into it, like Floyd and stuff. You probably get into this album. Maybe Tool people might like this because it is a bit slow and
maybe. I think it has a certain I just feel like it has a market. It has some people are gonna love it and some people are gonna just not quite understand it. And then I do get what the effort here is about. There were the nitpicks on this album, or just the common complaints I have with every track, that it just felt the same. Not that it sounded the same, and that's the one thing I want to get. This is an artistic medium, and the most important thing is spreading across the emotional aspect. And for me, it felt like like I said before, it was quite an easy, fun journey, but at the same time, I was kind of like anything on a roller coaster. If you ride it for 45 minutes, I'm sure you can get bored of it. You know, and there was no times where there was dizzying heights, the slow movements, the down. It was just kind of like that generally the whole time. So unfortunately, I know this was a good recommendation as well from a fan of ours as well, and for that we are sorry, because we know you're a massive fan of the album, and we understand, I guess, why people love this band, why they cherish it dearly, and for that we don't want to take that experience away from them, but from people on the outside, you know. I think what I'd like to hear on the next album is just some times where the album can take a dark turn, because not every story has to be told that way, and those synths at the top are taken away for something else, you know, just so they're not over everything. But good luck with that. Danny, what's your final score?
6.
5.5 for me. The things I can't forgive are those self-indulgent intros, the songs feeling the same, and just not enough risks in certain sections, but overall the playing was brilliant and the orchestration was phenomenal. So there you go.
And in the words of Mechina, oh misery, the relentless unforeseen, like the winter sky, only moments away from sunlight.
Thanks guys for joining us for another Super Metal Brothers review. Until the next time, I am Super Metal Brother Matt.
And I'm Super Metal Brother Dane.
We've been the Super Metal Brothers. Thank you guys for watching. Catch you soon.